So I realise there's many of you that will have had some level of experience in Canva. It's become a very popular tool, and no doubt you've already had a little bit of a chance to play. And I do apologise for any kind of overlap of what you've already learned, but it's quite a broad audience that we have here, so it could be, hopefully you'll discover some things that you haven't come across so far. All right, so just before we get underway, the housekeeping. So this is being recorded, and the video from today will be available on the Act Local website. So if you miss anything or we've skipped over, it will be available on there, and that's under the events and training section. And it's also going to be available on YouTube under the Town Team Movement account. So if you want to check those out later, you can. There'll also be a QR code that I'm going to be showing shortly about how to share your Canva presentation. So the presentation itself is something that you'll be able to access directly through the QR code that I present to you in a little while. And before we go too far, I need to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm coming to you from today, which is the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people. So we acknowledge the various lands from which you'll join us from as well, and the traditional custodians of those, and any First Nations people that are here with us today. And we pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So who am I? My role is at Town Team Movement. I'm the operations lead. Um, I have been involved in and continue to be involved in quite a few community groups over the years. Recent years with the number of town teams that I'm actively involved in. So Manning Town Team, Angelo Street and Como Town Teams, all in the city of South Perth. Also part of the Manning Night Riders Incorporated Cycling Club and a few other formal and informal groups. And I guess that's a lot of where my experience with Canva comes from, is playing an active role in those groups and helping to promote events and so on that those groups have been part of. So I found myself, I also worked in IT related roles for many years of my career. I used to be big into PowerPoint for doing any kind of presentations, etc. But over the last 5 years, I found myself keeping on coming back to Canva. It keeps on improving, getting better and better, and it's becoming more and more flexible. So that's how I came to be here. Now, who is Town Team Movement? Town Team Movement, we're a not-for-profit, independent not-for-profit, started in WA and now sort of expanding around the world. But we are building a movement of positive doers, so the people that get things done in your communities. And we've built quite a large network nowadays. We've got, I think as of this week, we've got about 177 town teams, mostly in Western Australia, but also around the eastern states and now in about 5 other countries such as New Zealand, UK, Poland, US, and possibly one or two others that I've forgotten to mention. So it's a movement that's fast growing. What are we about? Two things really. One is inspiring and supporting governments to do, I guess, less to their communities without sort of real involvement from communities and doing things for them with minimal consultation, but trying to shift them more to a mindset of doing with community and even empowering communities to do things by themselves. So that's on the one side, that's on the government side. And then on the other side of the coin, we've got working with citizens to encourage them from taking a passive kind of mindset and more of a consumer-based mindset of service delivery and changing that thinking to being more empowered and getting them to be more active in their communities. So that's the two sides of the same coin, and that's really what Town Team Movement is all about. How do we do that? As I mentioned, we have town teams, but we also have consulting services that we often consult to different clients such as governments and sometimes land developers and some others. And we also work with some positive partners like RAC, like Main Roads, like Road Safety Commission, Department of Local Government, etc. So those partners enable us to do the work that we do. And that also includes education and training. And I guess that's the sort of thing of what we're in today. And more specifically, what we're in is the Act Local program. And the Act Local program is all about enabling communities to flourish through promotion of active citizenship. And we have Act Local program on the ground. So we have representatives of Act Local in the Wheat Belt in Western Australia, as well as the Pilbara region and the Kalgoorlie-Boulder region as well. But because this is an online session, we may have people coming from anywhere around the world. So welcome to all of those of you from wherever you come from. Uh, Now, I wanted to, I guess, make this a pure Canva session. So this whole presentation is made in Canva. It is presented through Canva, and so every feature you see pretty much here is done in Canva. You'll see this QR code that I mentioned earlier. If you were to scan this on your phone, you can have access to this presentation. And I've set this one up to actually play more like a short video that runs for a few minutes rather than an actual traditional slide type of presentation. So if you get a chance, scan your phone on that and you'll see what that looks like. And this could be a way moving forward if you do develop a presentation that you would like to share to people, particularly if it's a presentation that is likely to be adapted and changed as you go. This is basically a link, so you'll be able to come into this link, another week or two's time, or whenever. In fact, I'm not actually sure when it expires. I think it's quite, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't expire, but don't hold me to that. But that is actually quite a useful feature that I discovered recently. So what is Canva? I think many of you will see it as pretty much a straight up replacement for Microsoft PowerPoint, or perhaps something like a simpler version of Adobe Photoshop. So it is basically a graphic design tool. I use the word freemium there. I'm not sure if you've heard the word freemium before, but I guess it's kind of more of like a modern internet term for something that starts off free. But if you pay a little bit more, you can get some premium options. And even though it's freemium, if you're part of a not-for-profit, Canva does actually have some pretty generous not-for-profit licensing, so you can actually get premium model for free. And there's various things you need to do to prove your not-for-profit status. But if you are from a not-for-profit, and that may or may not include local governments, by the way, you might have to check that, but it's worth looking into. So aside from it being a graphic design tool, it's also it's cloud storage, because all of your designs stay in there. You don't have to copy them out separately like you would have in some more traditional type of software. And I guess anyone that's done any kind of designs would know that some of the designs you create with different design packages do get quite large. So they do take up a fair bit of storage space. So that's good to know there's unlimited storage within your Canva account. Uh, the other thing is it's actually a collaboration tool. So there's some really good collaboration type of features. And what we've found at Town Team Movement is we actually use them a lot we have team meetings online and we would have a shared Canva doc that we are all going into. And there's often some sort of brainstorming and development of ideas that happens collaboratively. And there's also some features, which some I'll show you later, but some that you can just tag someone in and it will send a notification to them and that you've been asked to check out this part of this design and allow you to comment and so on. So it's quite interactive, and those interactivity features are developing as time goes on and continuing to improve. It's also now a video editor. I know obviously nowadays with social media, there's a lot more video around, and for those of you that have done any content creation for social media, you'll know that videos definitely get noticed a lot more and are viewed a lot more than and get a lot more engagement than still images, etc. So it's worth having a little bit of a play with that and trying to create some reels or some videos for your social media platforms, and it's actually really quite easy to use. And as I mentioned already, it's presentation software. So, like I said, I guess it's the modern. I see it as a bit of the modern equivalent, modern replacement, I suppose, for Microsoft PowerPoint. Um, yeah, and even that nowadays, it used to be a limiting feature of that you would, if you're ever going out to do a presentation, I always feel like I had to have a copy of a PowerPoint version of my presentation in case the internet connection wasn't very good. But even that now is something that you can do offline. So the features are really gaining all the time. Um, So what's it good for? I've already explained some of those, but and why should I use it? So it's good for basic graphic design. And even if you're not much of a designer, which I have to confess I'm not, templates are a great place to start. So templates have been designed by, I guess, some people that are highly skilled in graphic design. So they sort of get their, the relative proportions and often color schemes, etc. And they create a template. So you can then just tailor that template to your own needs without necessarily, and it could still look really good without you having to, have that type of in-depth design skill. It also has a large library of stock images, but also nowadays there's the ability to create some AI generated images. Um, so between those two, you can always find something that you can, whatever you can imagine, essentially, it's either in there or it's easy to create. So that's a pretty powerful um, thing for any kind of presentation that you're creating or document you're creating. It has these things called elements, which are a very generic kind of term, but essentially, if you can imagine it, then it's sort of like a component. So if you wanted to imagine, and I needed a part of a spreadsheet in my presentation, there's an element that is essentially a spreadsheet. There's things like a graph that you could uh, throw in, a graph element you could throw into your presentation, even adjust the actual values that go into your graph. And there's things like polls and quizzes that you can do the same for as well. And you can even share that functionality with your users online, and they can sort of, take a poll as they go, and you can display that live on the screen. So some really cool elements that will add a lot of functionality and a lot of more than just the visual element, but also a bit more interactivity to your presentations. There's a huge array of fonts in there, hundreds of them, in fact. So, it's really easy to find the right style of font to match your kind of the style of the document that you're creating. And it's a simple feature, but the background removal tool means that I know many of you would have done things like wanting to embed put a logo of one of your sponsors perhaps onto a flyer or something like that, but you just can't get one with the transparent background. Canva's got the feature, the background removal feature. It's just a click of a button and it removes any background on a logo or any image, which is just a nice little feature. And finally, I guess why? Because good design is now expected even for community groups. I guess cast your mind back for, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and I think people would not be too bothered if there was, a flyer or some kind of invitation that didn't look that great, just had the bare bones information on it. Nowadays, people expect it to look good, and it's easy enough to do. So all right, so kicking on. So what I'm going to cover today? Now, firstly, you'll notice this is actually built this is an element, a table type of element. Actually, it's called a sheet, but it's basically like an Excel type of document that I've embedded in this particular slide. So you can create these things where you have the actual, real life users in your system. You can kind of create your own statuses, etc. And this looks and appears very much like an Excel doc, and that's pretty much because it's a component of that within Canva. But we're going to go over some designs and document types shortly. I'm going to do an in case you missed it session, which some of you may find a little bit of repetition, I suppose, but I really want to make sure that those of you that are new to Canva have discovered a bunch of these simple features that can help you really get what you need out of the look and feel that you're trying to create. Elements that I mentioned, logos we might look at, and I'll quickly do an example of an event flyer. All right, so actually let's kick on straight into the in case you missed it section. So these are little basic features that you may or may not have discovered. So there's things like resizing an image or an element, cropping a picture if you don't want the whole thing, grouping elements together. So then you want to move them around en masse. So you might have 5 or 10 different objects that you very carefully put exactly where you want them. And the last thing you want to do is accidentally move one of those, so we can group them together. Layers are quite an important feature to get things. If you've got 4 or 5 elements, you need to make sure that you push the one that's at the front behind the second element so that you've got everything displayed in the right layering. We've got locking, so often we use the locking feature if you've got a background image and you don't want to accidentally drag that around as you're changing anything on it. Comments, I mentioned earlier about tagging someone else in, one of your other team members, to let them, know what you've done and perhaps ask for their feedback on it. Alignment, if you've got lots of objects on a page and you would like the left side of them aligned, I'll show you how to do that. Spacing, same sort of thing. If you've got a whole bunch of items down the page and they're, 5 pixels between 2 and 3 and 10 pixels between 4 and 5, etc. So you're trying to space those out evenly. Transparency is often a good way to sort of show what's behind something just a little bit, not entirely. And background remover I've mentioned already. Now, I'm just going to stop sharing this presentation for a minute because I want to actually delve into Canva and I want to show you. So excuse me for a moment while I shuffle things around and reshare. I just want to demonstrate some of these features that I just talked about. Okay, that should be visible to you any moment. Hopefully you can see it. Thumbs up anyone that can see it. I haven't had any objections yet, so hopefully that means that it's visible. Now, I just want to firstly get the zoom on that right so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm trying to demonstrate each of these now. Now, resizing, so that's a very simple thing. So you click on any object you want to resize, and you'll see the box with the 4 dots around the corners. And then basically you hover your mouse onto the corner where and then the circle on the corner will change color, and then you can just drag like that, and that's how you resize. It's actually really quite simple. Okay, next one was cropping. Now, if I have an image that I wanted to crop, just to show some of it, I can just click on the image, in fact, double click on the image, and you'll notice there what happens is instead of it being the circles on the corner, you'll see it's just got the little right angled part on the corner. And if you hover over that, you can then move that corner in and you'll see that and you can do it from the opposite corner as well. So if you just wanted to pick either corners, and now we've got a smaller box, and if we just want to move the image around behind it, we can just, once we've got the size of that box right, we can then move the image behind it just to show the part of the image that we actually want to display. And then we click out and you'll see that it's cropped the image. And it actually hasn't cut all the rest of the image away. So if I was to double click on that, I can now go and remove that crop if I wanted to, just like that. So that's quite a handy little feature. So it's quite easy to, play around and get that exactly as you need. So that's cropping. Grouping. So that's just a case of, so say for example, I wanted to line up some of these objects here, and I'm happy with the positioning of them where they are. Now, so that I don't mess up that arrangement, what I can do is I can highlight those together like that, and you'll see one of the features at the top, it comes up as group. So now that essentially behaves as one element, and then I can click in and out, and I don't have to worry about accidentally, moving one in relation to the other. And it's just as easy pretty much to ungroup it. You just click out, click in, and you'll see ungroup comes up as an option there. So I'll just click that now, and you'll see now it's sort of reverted to, the 4 different objects that I selected. So that's grouping. Now, layers. Layers. So if we were to stack a bunch of these objects on top of each other, firstly, I'll just do this, and then you'll see, so how these are all sort of thrown in a different mess about with this. You'll see that they're different ones. So say I wanted that bike to be on the front now. So if I just I'll click out firstly, but if I select the object and then I get the 3 dots, I can then click on the layer option, and then you'll see a few options here. There's either bring forward, which will bring it 1 layer at a time to the front, or just bring to front. So now you can see that it's in front of all those other objects now. But equally, if I now want to push that one to the back, I just click out, click in again to select it, get my 3 dots, and go back to layer, and then go send to back. So it's a simple kind of feature, but one that's is, it helps you get things exactly as you would want them. So that was layering. Next one is locking. So if I wanted, for example, this bike image as the one as sort of like a more of a background type of image, firstly, I'll just resize it all there. In fact, I can even resize outside the borders of the page. You'll see that. Okay, now, first thing I want to do on that actually is to push it to the back. So I'll click the three dots, go to layer, and go send to back. So now it's at the back, all the text is in front, and all the other objects are in front. And then now what I'll do to make sure I don't accidentally move it is I'll just click that little lock button here. So that locks the position of it. And then now if I click out, I can now go and select anything over the top, and I can't even, I can't accidentally move that image. Of course, that's created its own issues with me not being able to see some of this text, so I might need to play around with that. All right, so I'm just going to click on that and unlock it now. And now I can just go back and actually resize it back to the size that it was originally. Okay, so that's locking. Comments. So now here we go. So if I click on the three dots again, and then I click comment, I can now go and mention one of my other colleagues, and then let's say it was Dave, and I wanted to write a request to Dave to go do something with this. So, and then I'll hit submit comment, and then Dave would get an email saying that Rory has asked you to do this, for example. I'm not going to do it because I haven't even mentioned to Dave that I'm doing this session, so he might be a little bit confused if I send him an email about it. Okay, that's comments. Okay, alignments. Now this is quite a useful one if you're doing fiddly type of interface stuff where you want to line things up. So let's say I wanted to put all these objects roughly in a line, and you see there they're not quite lined up well. So what I can do now is click in them and select part of all of those. So now I've got all four of those selected, and I'll click on my three dots. And then there's one here called align elements, and there's a few ways I can do it. In this case, I'm going to go for right. So that's going to align the right edges of what I've just done. And you can see there, that's nice and smooth down the right there, nice straight line, because those are all aligned perfectly. Now, if I could also do something other, so we might be able to say align them down the center. So again, select them all, and then click the center there, and you'll see that's an easy way to do it. Okay, now also something called spacing, kind of similar in a way. You'd say I wanted these to all have exactly the same gap between them. And you'll see at the moment that gap I've got between the second and third object is actually quite large, and the other is a bit smaller. Same sort of thing. I'll select them all, click on the three dots and go space evenly. And I'll do that vertically, and you'll see there it just adjusts them so that they've all got exactly the same gap between them. So I find that's quite a thing to speed up the what it takes to do your interface type of work. Okay, next one is transparency. So sometimes it's good to just drop an image on here, but sometimes that's a bit hard to read, or you like to be able to see what's behind it. If they were going to work on this one, we wanted to make it just slightly more transparent. First thing, I'm just going to bring this to the front, and I'll show you what it can do when it is transparent. So I'll click on that again. Now I will go to, sorry, one button. Click on that there, and you'll see this little button up here that says transparency. So what we can do, we click on that, and then at the moment it's 100% opaque or 0% transparent. So if I slide that across, you'll see it gradually gets a little bit more transparent. So sometimes that can be really helpful to be able to just show what's behind your object. And probably actually a better example of this one, if I just go back to make that not transparent at all. If sometimes it's good if, like this logo I've got, for example, here. I'm going to bring that onto the front firstly. Actually, no, I might send that one to the back. Why my layer? Sometimes you'll get this where you're something in your way you've selected or something, it means that it pops up a different menu. Sometimes I'm confused as to why it does that. So at the moment it's not doing that. don't know if anyone's got the answer to that themselves. Generally, there's someone else that's a quite experienced user um, that can point out a few things that I've missed. Anyhow, that would be sometimes having a transparent image like that. If you want something to appear from behind, it's just a way to play around with that. And background removal we've already mentioned, I think, and we don't actually have any examples here, but if this logo here had a white background on it, all we need to do is click that back BG remover button and it would just make it a transparent background on it. So it's quite an interesting and simple tool to use. All right, so it's quite a few things I've gone through there in quite a short amount of time. Now, does anyone, I'm just trying to catch up with my chat at the moment. Just seeing if anybody had some questions they were going to try and ask me. Okay, all right. Sorry, there's no chats around that. We'll continue on then. Now, this next example, if you can see it, so this is an event that we've got coming up in November called the Como Country Fair. And those of you that have done a market or a festival or something like that, one of those things you often do need to do is to create a sitemap. So I find Canva is the perfect tool for that. And with that, what I do is I just generally go to Google Maps and get a satellite image of the location. I drop that into a Canva design, and then I would lock that map, which you can see here. When I click on it, you'll see it is locked. And then I just use objects like rectangles and squares to create little allocated areas and text boxes, etc. So that's pretty much what I've done here. And I can zoom in on that and you'll see what I've done here. Actually, it's probably to get I don't know if they might even be too small for you to see properly, but I'll zoom in. So what I've done here with these is I've created essentially these are market stall places, and I've created 12 of them in a row here. And this is just basically a rectangle and a text box, and they're grouped. So if I ungroup that, you'll see what I've done here. So there's a rectangle, sorry, a square there, and just a text box here. If I click on that, you'll see I've made the background color that orangey selection. And then I've also made a border of it that's got a width of 4 and the border color is white. So you'll see that. But you also notice, if you can see it, that that's actually slightly transparent. So if you click on that, you'll see I've got that transparency there set to 66. So you can actually see there's something behind it. And then what I've done is I've shuffled them there and then I've grouped them. So select them both like that and hit the group button. But for those of you that have done anything like this before, you'll know how tedious that is to get. How many have I got in this whole thing? I've got 40 or something of these boxes. So to go create that 40 times would be extremely tedious. So all I did with that was, I'll show you how easy it is basically build one of those little units, and then we click this duplicate button. So I can go and create. So now I've got 2 of those. All right, and then what I can do is select the 2 of them and also hit the duplicate. So now I've got 4 of them. And then I'll do the same thing again and I'll select all of them and I can duplicate that again. And now I've got 8 of them and so on. So it's very easy to go, replicate what you've done numerous times over. And then all I need to do is change the reference numbers in there. So if I was to double click in that, I can change N1 to N2 and then N3, etc., etc. So that's a fast way, really. So create one of the things that you want to do and then just duplicate it and then regroup, duplicate again. So yeah, so that's, I guess, a simple way to go create something like a sitemap. The other thing you can do with this stuff is often people request things like a PDF of a sitemap. So if you created a design like this, it's very easy to click on your share button and then go download and pick what type of format you want. It might be a PNG file as an image, or it might be a PDF. And then you can select which pages you want to create in your PDF and then just and then save it from there. So you can create that. But alternatively, you'll notice here this one has this version on it. So I found that's quite important if you're doing changes to those types of documents, like a sitemap that tend to, get changes to your plans for a festival or whatever it is every few days sometimes. So a version is always really important because if someone sees two copies, they can just see what's the latest date on it. So that's good. But one other way you could actually solve that problem in Canva would be, instead of sharing that as a PDF, you could actually share it as a what's called a public view link. So what that then does is, so we can go create a public view link there, and then that would essentially generate that's now a URL that you can share. And then what would happen if everyone has access to that link and you make changes? Every time you change it. Anytime they go in, they've got the latest version. So I find that's like a really handy feature. Okay, what else did we have? Now, elements, they're the next section. So to talk about these. So these are a little bit more interactive. What if we click down over on the left here, we'll see elements here. So there's all sorts of elements that whatever you can think of, anything that you want. So if you wanted a bar chart, or you wanted a poll, or you wanted a moving image of the Earth spinning around, that sort of thing. They also have these things called frames, which they all look the same. So if I was to sort of scroll down a bit here, you'll see all these different frames. And what frames are, essentially, they're a little bit of a template to drop your photo into. So like this one you'll see is actually on the bottom right here that's actually a frame. So no, it's already done, but that started off being one of these types of things, was basically a person holding the phone with no actual image in it, and then I just drag the photo of me into it, and then it looks like I'm on their phone. So the frames are really cool to create features like that. The same went with this phone one here with the Como Country Fair, but you can see also over here there's all sorts of examples that we can drop in there, and then essentially if I've got another photo that I wanted to drop into this, I could just drag it on top of that frame, and then it would include it in the frame. So yeah, so frames are really cool. Have a play with them. Now this element here is just a bar chart. So we can there's just so many of these things. I just double clicked on it then, by the way, and you'll see what it does is when I double clicked on it, you'll see over on the left that it's the spreadsheet that feeds the data within that bar chart. So I can go and change this data live, and then you'll see it just recreates my bar chart on the fly. So yeah, so these elements are really, really cool. There's so many of them. You can even import data. And you'll see over here the polls. They're actually quite a new thing. So you can also go and add new options in there. And if I'm sharing this whole presentation with you as a viewer of it, you can actually go and vote in these polls as we go on a live document. So yeah, so that's really quite a cool feature, I think. Okay, now shapes and lines. Now these might seem like a relatively, you know, kind of boring subject maybe. But what I find sometimes, even with all the templates and with the elements and the stock type of stuff that's available in Canva, sometimes you're just imagining some kind of shape that you want, and you can actually create it yourself if it's not available through those other means. So just wanted to demonstrate a couple of those options. So if I started off with a square, a plain line, or a plain circle, how would I turn them into these objects you see on the right here? And these are, believe it or not, all created from the same objects. So like the red triangle with the black outline on it, I started off with this gray box. So if I was to do that, what would I do to adjust that? So if I went to edit on this, I can actually change the shape like that. Or I think there's even a couple of other options here. So if I click on this little button up here, you'll see that it's got sides. So I can actually change the shape just by sliding this slider along here. So if I slide that back to be 3 sides instead of 4, suddenly it's a triangle. And you'll also notice that the red triangle on the right actually has rounded corners. So if I slide this corner rounding thing over here, you'll see now that looks quite similar to the red one. Uh, of course, I also want this to be red, so I'll just click on the color and I'll change it to red. And then that one on the right has a border around it as well. So if I click on this button up here, you'll see that there's stroke weight, which is the one, sorry, the stroke on the top. So it had no line. That's basically an outline. And then I can adjust the thickness of that through this stroke weight. So now, there you go. It's not exactly the same as the one on the right, but it's pretty close. So that's how I did that. I went from a grey, plain, boring rectangle to a red triangle with rounded edges and a black outline. Okay, next one, the line here. So this is a plain black line. On the right, we have a dashed line with a curve in it and an arrow on the end. So if I start with that on the left, I have that selected. I'll go up to my menu at the top. So we've got line start and line end arrows here I can click on. So I can pick one of these here to create a little bit of an arrow there. What else has it got? It's dashed. So if I pick one of these other options, I click on line type. Sorry, not the one I was looking for. This button here. So I'm going to turn that now into a dashed line. Maybe it looks more like that one. Okay, and then also it has that straight weight button. So now you see I can slide along, the arrow gets bigger, and the line gets thicker. And so now we're getting close. Now I just need to put the curve in it. So I click on this button over here, and there's an elbowed curve. It's one of the options. So now if I was to move one end of this, you'll see now if I click out of that, it looks pretty close to the one on the right. All right, so that's number two. Now, the third one is a little bit trickier. So what have I got over here? So that kind of looks like a sideways nail almost. But if we look carefully at that, it looks like I can see that looks like a circle, a semicircle there. That kind of looks like a rectangle. And there might be some other shapes in there that I'm trying to create. So I might just duplicate this one up and go and do this in the middle where I've got some more space. So first thing I'm going to do is make the color the same. So I'll make that blue. And then I think I need maybe a rectangle that I'll add. So I'll go back to my elements on the left, click on the shapes, that's a square. Now it's giving me purple for some reason. I'm going to make sure that I match those colors. Now, I showed you before resizing how we do that. Yeah, that also allows you, when you're doing with shapes, to change the dimensions a little. So that's one way. But you'll also see these little flat kind of objects in the middle of each face of the rectangle. If I highlight that and it changes color, then it means I can just resize using that. So looking at what we've got over on the right there, I am going to. Now you'll see also when I resize these, I don't know if you can see that you're in, when I hover in the right spot and it aligns with the other objects nearby, it does that little dotted line so it can show you that those two are at the same level. So if I do it on the top part and I do it on the bottom part, then I know those two are actually the same height. Okay, I'm going to resize that so it looks kind of the same width maybe, but of course it also looks to me like I've got another object in here that's behind, like another white rectangle that sits behind the front rectangle. So what I'm going to do with that one then, so I'm going to just replicate this rectangle. So duplicate it. And you'll also see a little button here we haven't used yet, and that's the little rotate button. So what I can do is click on that and I can slide it around to a 90-degree angle. Okay, so now it's facing that way. I'm going to change the color of this one to a white. So where's my white? There it is. Okay, now if I slide it there, you'll see this is the top layer. So what I actually want to do now is push that one layer back. So I'll go back to my three dots, go to my layer and go send backward. So you see what I've done there? I've just pushed it behind that rectangle there. And now if I can slide it around, look what happens. So now we're getting somewhere. So, and what I can also do is just resize that rectangle so it looks a lot bigger. Okay. And now what I can do, we're getting close to this one on the right here. I'm going to duplicate this square now, because that's now going to be the same height as the other square. And I'm going to push it across a bit here and align it there with those little pop-ups. Okay, now we've got that. And now all I need to do is push that layer backward. So, and ta-da, there we are. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. So I can now just size those to get pretty close to what we've got there. So quite a few steps in that one, but a good exercise to just using basic shapes like lines and rectangles and squares and arrows, etc., to recreate our own shapes. So yeah, good simple exercise with lots and lots of small steps. But if you can master that type of shuffling around different shapes, resizing, changing the rotation on them, moving the layers forward and back, resizing, all that sort of stuff, you'll actually get really good at getting your your basic skills up. Really good for creating more complex types of images and designs. All right, moving on. We've got just an example here. Actually, I might flick us back to our actual Prezzo now. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of talking because we're covering a lot of ground, but you will get a chance to have some interactivity soon. Okay, let's go back to the presenter view. So I'm using presenter view, which essentially gives me a view where I can, a bit like if you've used PowerPoint presenter view. So I'm seeing a few slides in advance. And yeah. Now, everyone can see that okay? Back to where we left off earlier. Okay. All right. So now we're going to look at how we use templates to create a flyer. So something that's quite a common type of a thing. We're all probably doing events of some scale in our roles, and we want to promote our events. So this is a pretty basic thing with Canva that we can use a template. So we can just go to the file menu in Canva, and then we click on the design button, and then you just type in what type of thing you're trying to create. So in this case, I said event flyer, and it then comes up with a whole bunch of different options of different types of flyers. And then essentially we select that template as a starting point. And once we've got that, we can then basically go on and modify whatever it's created in there. So you'll see now on the left example here, that's the original template, and then essentially we just go in and click on all the different elements that are there and make changes. So, for a simple event thing, you can change the year, you can change the name of the event, and the address and time, etc., etc., etc. So it's pretty simple to essentially just copy the design that's in there if you like it. Change a few colors, change a few little fonts, and most critically is the actual details. Oh, by the way, I'm just reading Rachel's question. Can we upload our own bespoke fonts and brand colors? That's actually a really good question. Definitely brand colors you can if you know the codes for those colors. That's easy enough to do, and you can create your own um, uh, basically brand folders. So you've got to put all your elements of your branding into a folder, and it's easy to access in a hurry. That's kind of what we do at Town Team Movement. We get brand folders. So we've got an Act Local brand folder, for example, that has all the different elements of our Act Local logos and colors and shapes, etc. And then it's easy to access when we're creating design. I haven't tried uploading a font. I have used fonts before in other programs, but yeah, you basically, I think they have fonts are something like a .ttf file that you need to upload to your computer. And once you've got it in there, then I imagine it would be accessible through Canva. There might be some other process around that, but I'm almost certain that the answer would be yes. So yeah, let's see how you go with that. All right. What else have I got? So, okay, so once we've got to the point where we've got designs that we're happy with, there's a few things we can do. Sharing them is obviously a good way to go. So we can share them in a way where we collaborate. And as I mentioned earlier, we can do that. We actually do that a lot at Town Teams. We do a lot of our meetings where we share ideas and develop ideas together using a Canva board, and everyone can go in and see that. I know there's other programs that offer something similar. But that collaboration is actually really quite handy. And then one of the things you don't get with that is the problem of having old versions that people are looking at. So there's only one version of a Canva board until you download it into a sort of fixed format. So then you can download it, and you can download it into most formats that you can think of, like a PNG file or a PDF, um, or a PowerPoint, something like that. The public view link is the one I sort of showed earlier that which is actually, I find that actually really handy. I'm trying to use that more and more. And you can actually create a website, which is really a cool kind of a thing. So something really basic, that you can just play around and create, and then hit the website button, and yeah, you'll see that you can come up with your own name dot my.canva dot site. So yeah, have a play with that if you haven't had a look at it. Also, there's the print with Canva feature, which actually would send your design to a printer. So Canva have presumably set up a bunch of partnerships with local printers around Australia and probably the world. And so they actually do the printing of your posters or what have you. I have not used it myself personally, but I do know others that have used it, and apparently it's actually really good value and good quality and quite fast. So don't think that, like some software products, that it's going to go off to some printing company in the US, that's then going to charge you a fortune, and it's going to take 6 weeks to get it shipped to Australia. It's actually, they use local printers, and it's actually really quite fast. So definitely encourage you to have a little bit of a play with that. Right. So that's that. Now, before we go on to the next, like the practical, is there any questions that anyone has at this point that they want me to sort of go over or try and answer? So drop that into the chat, or turn your microphone on and speak up if you would like. Okay. If there
Any
are
chance of showing us something about video?
Video, yes, it's a good question. I deliberately didn't include video today because it's a little bit more complex, and I didn't really want to get bogged down in it too much because it is quite complex. If you've not done any type of video editing before, there's a little bit to learn. So that's why I sort of chose not to include that in today. If you do have a specific question, then feel free to drop me an email, and I can help you out. Later after the session if you'd like.
Just one other question. Is there a sort of a help button function somewhere on here? I've got mine up here and I can't see one.
That's a very good question, and I've never looked for it. Can anybody else answer that? Because I have a quick look for it myself. Ooh, that's actually a really good question. I've never even noticed that before. Oh, here we go, bottom right. Ask Canva.
Uh, I see it. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Question mark down there. Mm.
Powered by AI. So there you go. I'll give that a
Yeah.
give that a go. But I suppose that sort of, I think that goes to show, like, what a good product it is. That I mean, mind you, I'm not probably, you get different types of users. Some people that like to read the more of like the how-to before they before they get stuck into it. I'm the other way around. I like to kind of try and break it first and then work out later if I get stuck. So
Mm.
yeah.
Are you going to talk about AI with all of this as well?
Again, that's probably an area that we're not going to play with too much today, other than mentioning really that there are some tools here that are, embedded. There's the, what do we call it? Magic. There's quite a few embedded, like Magic Media. There's quite a few embedded tools nowadays in Canva that are that do utilize AI. So I could. Sorry, I'm just going to mute someone there. I'm getting a bit of background noise from.
В 2022 году Игорю Зеленскому пришлось оставить должность, которую он там занимал.
Sorry. Yeah, so so there is things like this magic media that you can go create a picture of a oops. Create a picture of a girl riding a bike. Okay. So you can create some images. So yeah, if you can't find the stock images or the elements that you want, you can utilize some of these types of features and then just click on that and then it will drop the image into.
Good
So
stuff.
there are some pretty cool features like that. Yeah. To be honest, I mean, I find if I was going to do something like that, that actually came out with quite a nice result. I didn't have any fixed idea in my head of what I wanted that to look like. But when I have tried that before in Canva, I found that it wasn't quite as good as using ChatGPT or something like that to do the image creation. And of course, it's easy enough to any image that you get. So you can go into a separate window, do a Google search for an image, and then just copy the image and paste it direct into here. So yeah, it doesn't add a lot of extra value of having that embedded within Canva, although obviously, you know, Canva being a one-stop shop is quite handy. All
So
right.
if you were actually doing that, so is there a library function there where you can actually save images that you're importing?
That's a good question. So I know whatever other image you put. So if I've got that in there now, and then I know go back to where are we? Back to uploads. Yeah. So wherever I've used it, you'll see that's just now that's in my uploads.
Right.
So you can use that anytime going forward. And you'll see here, like these are all the images I've used throughout other things. So that's a good little way to keep your library handy. All right. Yeah, next thing we're going to do is some practical exercises. So if you guys have your Canva window open yourself, then what I wanted to do with that is to, what have we got here? I was going to basically get us to work on doing an event flyer. I'll just go back to present mode because you probably get a clearer picture. Okay, so yeah, this is what I want you guys to try now. If you've got this, if you've got your Canva open, what I wanted to do is to create a flyer and using this type of template. So create a flyer for something called your neighborhood, the long table dinner. So I'm just creating a fictitious event, a long table dinner event. And what is it? It's a dinner for the whole street or the whole area, neighborhood, whatever, where people bring along shared plates, drinks, tables, and chairs. And maybe there'll be some activities or entertainment. I'll leave you to decide if that's the case. And also when the event is, the date, the time, the cost, and who to contact, because those are all the key type of details. So yeah, I think if you, we don't have too many online at the moment. How many have we got? Actually, this is a manageable number to keep it into one group. So yeah, if you would like to, I was planning on spending around about 15 minutes on this. So feel free to get going with that. And then if you've got any questions, then speak up because no doubt there'll be other people that have the same questions as well. So, and if you need me to help you get started, then let me know. Is there any questions? Feel free to call out or to type it in the chat. And Rachel had a question. Does Canva do everything that PowerPoint can do? E.g. presents a slideshow, animations and transitions? Yeah, pretty much it does. So I would generally say it does everything PowerPoint does and more, although I guarantee I'm incorrect in a technical sense, because no doubt there'll be some features that I don't even know about with PowerPoint that Canva doesn't do. But yeah, essentially you can pretty much do the same thing. So I use a lot of animations and transitions and a lot of the presentations I do. Right. Do we have any questions on that task? How do you create a landscape flyer rather than a portrait? Very good question. I'll give that one a go myself. So what you can do, so when you go to a new design, so you can see what I'm doing, I'm sure. When we go to this homepage, you'll see at the top, what were you designed today? You can choose from your designs, templates or Canva AI. So I generally go to templates if I'm trying to create something. If I went to ask for a landscape flyer, I would start off by trying something like that. So there's that way of doing it, where it comes up with templates, and you'll see, obviously, there's some of these that aren't landscape flyers. But yeah, if you're happy with one of these as a template, you can. The other thing you can do is, if I go back to the beginning, you'll see all along this top thing here, you can go see all. And generally you'll see these common layouts here. You'll see that common layout size there, poster landscape. When you are doing these, I'd say pay fairly careful attention to the sizing, because you might want an A4 or you might want an A3, something like that. But there's also the opportunity to create your own custom size as well. So I've been using this a bit recently. We're doing some advertising banners, like corflute signage for that Como Country Fair I was showing you earlier. So went to the printers and they gave us the size of the corflute signage that they had available that was sort of off the shelf. They didn't have to cut. So I went and created the design using their exact dimensions they gave me, using that custom size thing there. All right, how are we going with our flyers? Anyone want to give me an update, or I'll assume that, I guess I have to assume you're either all on track and you're busy, or you've left the building. Esther, are you there?
I'm still working on mine, Rory. That's Cass. I'm still working on mine.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I might have a bit of a play with mine then. I might have a go. So let me just revisit the scope. So the event name, My Neighborhood Long Table Dinner. So I might start with the template. I might go. I'm going to use it with the Canva AI one rather than the template. Oh no, I'll stick with the template.
Can you hear me, Rory?
Yep.
I've just put into a heading there an invitation to this community dinner, and then I did the magic right and got them to rewrite it for me.
Oh, yeah.
And they've done that, so that made it a bit sexier.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got hashtags and stars in various places. What's that? Just alerting me to the fact that there's new content there?
Perhaps you could share your screen. Is that an option for you if I stop sharing?
Let me have a look. Share, yeah. There's me, but
Is there a share button at the bottom of your screen?
there, yeah, I just pressed it, but
And then it should come up with a select which
uh,
window you want to share, and then
yes, that one there.
an actual share button. Here we go.
There we go. You can see that?
Oh, yeah.
Bunch of people
Oh,
sitting
okay, yeah.
around.
Now that's just you can edit those stars out of that if you like.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can see how I can get rid of it. I just wondered why they were there.
I'm not sure. Often all sorts of AI type of text generators do that for some reason. They love their asterisks that they include in things. So
Uh,
yeah, feel free to remove that
uh,
and stop sharing if you like.
yeah, thanks.
All right. There's a question from Esther, like, can we do a QR code? So I'll start sharing again. All right. So okay, so I want to add a QR code to this for people to RSVP and send instead of sending me an email. And what quite often we use tools like Eventbrite or Humanitics as a way to sort of get RSVPs to events, either paid or unpaid. We use Humanitics a lot because it's actually free for free events. But basically what they give you is once you establish your event on Humanitics, then they'll just give you the URL. So then you can come back in here with the URL and you can then go and create, you'll see in here, I've just typed in QR code under elements, and then one of the things that pops up with is a QR code generator. So let's pretend that I actually have a Humanitics code that I have for my event. So I'm just pretending that's the one that I was given from my setting up Humanitics, and then I just go generate code, and there it is. That's the code to RSVP. So we can just drop that in here somewhere. I think a lot of the time with this, when creating these types of things, is just spending time rearranging objects and making sure you've got resizing the objects and making sure that you have all the information in there.
But when you've got a QR code like that, you can just save it to your own desktop, or does it always have to go to something like a Humanitics?
Well, it needs to point somewhere because otherwise you scan, like people see that they would scan the QR code and it would, if it doesn't go anywhere, then
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, you could actually use it to be a self-referencing kind of thing. So if I was to share this and then go create a public view link just to this document, it's now go create public view link, and there's the URL it's given me. So if I go copy that,
Yeah.
and now I can actually now go and generate that as a QR code, drop that in there, generate code. So now I'm just going to replace the one that I had before. And if you were to scan that using your phone right now, you probably don't see this document that I'm doing. So I don't know if anyone actually wants to try that.
I'll give it a go.
I might have to zoom in a bit, otherwise you might not get enough of a view of it. Anyone want to try it?
Doing my best. Yeah. You'll be pleased to know it works.
Yeah, cool. Good
Yeah.
to know.
So just to remind me where you go to for that sort of public link.
Just the share button on the top right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, public view link.
Right.
Most of the time, I guess, when you're distributing these types of things, people want a PDF or something they can print out because they want to put up in the shop windows and things like that. So the other thing that's quite handy for these ones is what we call a URL shortener. So I don't know if you guys have seen something called Tiny URL.
Right.
So a website I use quite frequently, tinyurl.com. So if it was so basically because you saw how long that URL was before that thing generated, and it's not certainly wasn't easy to remember. If I was to paste that one in here, that long URL that I was given earlier, but I wanted it to be something nice and easy to remember. So in my case, I was creating the event called Manning Long Table Dinner. So I'm just going to create a Manning LTD for Long Table Dinner, and then I'll go shorten URL. So now it's created a shortened URL for me. So, and it will actually generate me a QR code here. So I've now got that as as my own separate QR code. Now I can now copy that and paste it into, actually I don't even need to do that now that I think about it, because the old one will still work. But if I went back to here, I can now also add, if people don't have a barcode to scan or a phone to scan their barcode, I can just go and drop in something in here, which I'll show you. Like RSVP to what do I call it? tinyurl.com/Manning LTD for Long Table Dinner. And copy that. So I can create that as a link now on my. So now that's actually a link that they could, if this was a PDF and they get it electronically, then when they click on it, it will show up as an actual link. But equally, you could, if you can remember tinyurl.com/Manning LTD, that's much more likely to be able to remembered. And that would essentially take you to the same place that this QR code takes you to, which is the, well, in this case, it's taking us back to this flyer, but, we're using it to sort of use humanities or something like that. So yeah, there's not like a absolute beginner's feature here, but yeah, it's pretty, like you can create pretty professional type of flyer and registration system quite easily using free tools like this. So, all right, any questions on this one before we move on? I was going to, we've got another exercise I was going to get you guys to look at. If you are ready to move on, there's no pressure to, you can continue on. I was going to see if you wanted to adapt your design. So you can actually, I think a lot of this stuff, if you're creating an event, you may recall a slide I had earlier of the Como Country Fair, where we used the same basic design to produce a flyer, a banner, a photo frame, and so on. So if you would like, does anyone want to have a go at doing that themselves, or would you prefer me to try it, or you want a bit of both?
Knock yourself out.
All right, so I'll go back to my design then, and let's say I wanted to turn this into a like a big corporate sign that I was going to go and get printed and put it up at the corner of my local shops to make sure that everyone that comes to our local shop sees the invitation to this. So I'm going to rename. So also, by the way, to rename your documents, just up the top here where it just comes up with the default name. You can just click in there and rename it. So I'm just going to go and then in a flyer. I didn't even spell it correctly. Okay, all right, so that's my basic document. If you're going to create the same format again, so this is just, you know, your standard type of A4 flyer, A4 portrait flyer. I wanted another one of those and just play around with the format of it. I can just click on this duplicate page button, and then I can now start messing around with this and do something different and resize things and do whatever. And then I haven't lost the original one, which is up here. And then I can essentially start creating, you know, different versions of the same thing. If we want to create a bit of variety of different design, maybe some posters that we might put around the place to draw people's attention so they don't get sick of seeing the same one all the time. So that's if they're exactly the same format. But if you wanted to do this one as a in a different type of layout, okay, so what we can now do, we go to the file menu over there on the left and we go make a copy. You do get this allow pop-ups thing every now and again, and in my browser you'll see at the top here this little icon. So now that I've clicked that, it allows it to pop up another window. Okay, and then you'll see at the top left here, then this is a premium feature, by the way. There's the resize button, and you'll see that there's some predefined sizes of documents that you can do. So if I was trying to so my original flyer that I was planning on putting up in a shop window, if I actually wanted to turn that into an Instagram post, I click on that Instagram post there and then go resize this design. It's going to do its best at changing the format of that and the different dimensions of it to fit with an Instagram post. So you might just notice there that there's a bit more space on either side of the text now because it's slightly different dimensions. I guess another thing I would do with this is now to go and rename my document up here so I don't forget what it's for. So I'm just going to change the name from Manning Long Table Dinner Fly to Manning Long Table Dinner Instagram post. Okay, so that's renamed. This other one I was just playing around with, so I'm going to delete that so I can trash that page. And then obviously we can make changes. If it is an Instagram post, generally people tend to view those on their phone. So I wouldn't bother putting a QR code on it because unless they're carrying around two phones, they're not going to QR code scan their own phone. Yeah, and then we just obviously we've got that link in that. And if you are doing an Instagram post, you would probably then just go and put a lot of the text into the post text rather than the actual image that you're uploading. So, and then of course with this, we can now just go and resize and do whatever, change colors, remove information, add information, etc. So it's a pretty easy way to reformat something. I could even do the same thing again if I went and make another copy. One of those things that we used at one of our recent festivals was those like Instagram photo frames that you can get that sort of have the branding of the event all the way around it, and you get them printed out in big bit of core flute signage that might be like a meter wide or something like that. And then you take it around your event and people at your event get photos within that frame and then they share it to social media. So it gets a lot of sort of publicity for your event. And so if I was to do that here, I'll just go resize and I'd probably do that as a custom size. So I might go and go, let's do it in centimeters. And let's say I wanted it to be a meter wide, about 100 centimeters by I don't know, let's say 50 centimeters tall. And I'll just resize this design. Okay, and you'll see what it does there. To me, that needs quite a lot of reformatting. So what I'll be looking at, this was supposed to be a photo frame that people will be getting photos of at the event. There's probably a whole bunch of stuff that we don't need included in this, such as where it was and the date and RSVP, etc. And to meet your neighbors, I would purely make it something a bit different. So get rid of the free, get rid of the join us. And then throw a few of these extra things around the border. So for this, just to picture what this actually is, I will just drop a black rectangle in the middle so you can imagine that this is the cutout part of the frame. Or maybe I'll make it white. There you go. So we get that, take that to a printer and ask them to cut the rectangle out the middle as well. And that would be 1 meter wide by 50 centimeters tall. And then we take it around our event and we go, hey, you want a photo? And then, often also with those types of things, it might be something that we share on social media. So it might be hashtag meaning LTD25 or something like that, whatever we're making our social media hashtags. Something like that. Yeah. And then with that, so we can share it, download it, probably want that as a PDF print format. Sometimes they want the crop marks and bleed, with the little things on each corner so they can print them and cut them, trim them perfectly. So they can print right up to the edges of the signage. And then download that and they'll create the PDF. Okay, well, I think we're just about out of time today. I hope that was useful. I should go back to my closing slides.
That's been great, Rory. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So
Yeah,
we've got
thanks, Rory. That was actually really good that you showed me. I've been wanting to know how to do the bleed marks and stuff on Canva stuff. So thank you so much for that. That's showed me how to do it. So I appreciate
only
that.
on the PDF print. It's not on the other PDF.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's fine. Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, cool. Well, it sounds like there might be a little bit of interest in doing some basic video editing in Canva. So we might have a bit of a chat internally about that, and perhaps that might be another workshop we can look at.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So there is, as you can see on the screen here, we've got 4 of us that work on this part of the Act Local team. So I'm based in Perth. We've got Patricia that's based in the Pilbara. We've got Esther based in the Wheatbelt. And we've got SJ based in Kalgoorlie Boulder. But yeah, feel free to reach out. Love to help you guys in what you're doing. And one last thing, if you have a couple more minutes, if you might be able to fill in a feedback submission. Take a couple of minutes if you had it. Yeah, but thank you. And I'll hang around for a few minutes if you've got